Tikaita, Media and Communication Manager at Carrier Community. Welcome to today's CC-Webinar.live Keynote Knowledge Sharing Session, and thank you for joining everyone. We would also like to thank Telefonica for sponsoring today's CC-Webinar live session. Now I would like to welcome Jose Garcia, CEO of GTC, to introduce the keynote speaker and later to moderate the panel. For audience, if you have any questions, please do use the chat box option throughout this discussion. Also, after panel discussion, we will have some time aside where you will be able to ask questions verbally by using the raise hand button and allowing me to unmute you. So over to you, Jose.
So can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
You can hear me, yeah? Microphone is on. So thank you very much for spending the afternoon with us. We will have an exciting session with exciting Carrier community, with exciting panelists, and I can already see very exciting attendees joining us. I would like to say hello to Peter Bruce from IDT, to Rasa, to Ravinda, to Scott, to some of the friends that are joining us. I have the pleasure to introduce you now to Ignacio Garcia Comín. Ignacio Garcia Comín is responsible for digital solutions and mobility services at a minor industry player called Telefonica. So Ignacio, the stage is yours. Just entertain us for some minutes.
Thank you, Jose. Hello, everybody. It's for us a pleasure to be here today with you. And I hope that, as Jose said, what I'm going to tell you is going to entertain you for a while and hopefully to get some lessons learned or some hints about the business that we do. I prepare a small presentation. I hope it's going to work fine. And basically, what we call it was the digital messaging ready to go, which is the topic that we are going to follow today. So first, just let me introduce who we are. So within Telefonica, the company I represent is called Telefonica International Wholesale Solutions, and is the international branch of Telefonica. So we do international business, almost in 50, 60 countries, with a strong presence in LATAM and in Europe. And I have the pleasure to lead a unit which is handling the digital services and mobility. I'm not going to bother you telling about our all full portfolio, but what I would like to, let's say, highlight is the fact that some of the services beyond messaging help us to enrich the user experience. For instance, with the roaming services, we can extract from the signaling, from the all the records that are generated every time a user goes in roaming information, so we can generate use cases for messaging. And I think this is one of our key differentiators, as we have a quite broad portfolio. So just to begin, I'd like to tell you from where we come, where do we stand, and where do we go, or where do we want to go with you. So the first thing is that if we talk about digital messaging, is not to forget about from where do we come, and we come from the A2P messaging. What you see on the screen is the evolution of our traffic, only international traffic, not the domestic ones, which is handling each of the Telefonica's company. But you can see is that A2P SMS is far from being dead. It grows and it keeps growing, and despite all the, I could say, forecast, our business is good. So we have basically positioned ourselves into the brands aggregator and MNOs. Those are our customers, and we do essentially wide routes and direct routes. We don't do raid routes, and we hate fraud because it's really against our business. So it's a business that we want to pursue, and we expect really to keep growing in the next month. If you're interested in partnering with us and you're, let's say, providing this kind of services, we're very pleased to talk to you. I think this is what's important, because when we move into the digital arena, what we see is that despite all the fantastic evolutions that we have seen in the market, SMS is still, data is, I think, is like 6 months old. And I'm sure that it has changed a little bit in the last weeks, but it was, and it has been, and it's still by far the largest way brands communicate with their customers. But on top of this SMS, what we see is, I would say, two key things. The first one is that we have a myriad of new applications. You can see them on the screen, and some of them probably are today over 1 billion users already. So it's something that, from my side, is something that we cannot neglect. It's something that we need to understand, and basically it has two challenges. The first thing is how this is going to affect our business, and how we are going to take profit of these new ways of communication. No? SMS will grow, and in addition to the digital, I would say OTTs, we have the GSMA initiative with the RCS that is growing and growing, and every week we have news. It has already about 400 million users and a lot of launches every week. No? Another thing that it calls into my attention, and this is always with information from consultants and analysts, is that probably 85%, we can discuss if it is a right figure or not, of the chats, digital ones, are without the intervention of a human guy. So this is something that really we need to think about that. So what is the challenge? The challenge is how we are going to do business with this. This is where we are, this is from where we come, and basically we create a model. I'm not saying it's a perfect model, but it's a good model to discuss, and it's a good model to share our views. Basically, we think that there are 3 ways of making money in this new scenario, in addition to the existing one of the SMS. No? The first one, I would say, is, I mark with a 1, is the business that MNOs can do with the subscribers or clients, however you want to call them. And I would say this is, for instance, in Telefonica, I will show you later on, we have launched some campaigns just to refresh the device. We are talking about very relevant figures. And on top of the, let's say, day-to-day business, we think that with the digital business, we will be able to introduce value-added services. In second is what we call B2B. Not everybody probably in this call is doing B2B, but for us in Telefonica, we have a strong presence in this segment, and we do with corporate and with international companies a lot of business. So you can interact with them, and you can sell them all the benefits that the digital messaging is bringing to us. And last but not least is the wholesale. We could have called that indirect, but I call that wholesale because it's in our name. And basically, it's depending on how the RCS model is set up, depending if it's Google, Jive, Mavenir, and so on, they will still created, or it will still exist some wholesale pure traffic opportunity. No? So this is what we are doing, and to show you a little bit, this is I took a first case. So this is what we are doing in some of the OBs, and basically in the first case, what we have is from an SMS, we go into a captive portal, and on the 2 other ones, we are using RCX experience. So it's clear that, let me show you a little bit of animation. The opportunities, I don't think it's the case to talk about what the RCS or what the digital messaging is bringing to the users, but clearly the user experience and the opportunities for generating business is completely different. No, this is what the case number 1. Case number 1 to do business with. So now let's talk about the B2B. So in the B2B, I wanted to bring you some information. The first thing is that if we think about all the digital alternative of messaging that we have in the market, in our opinion, is absolutely, let's say, natural to understand that we will have to move into omni-channels. Now that most of the companies, the numbers that we have here is that it was before the COVID experience, but a lot of companies are rethinking about how they reinvent their customer engagement. If we have 6, 7, 8 applications running, I think, and RCS, of course, it's important to understand that we cannot just leave them apart. I think we need to play the game and to take profit of the opportunities that the omnichannel is bringing to us. No? On the right-hand side, you have different usage that why messaging is used by those companies according to a pool that we do with them and information we have. Of course, two factors authentication is always on the top, but there we have a series of, I would say, trends that are proper to the business. So if you see loyalty, booking information, delivery collection, debt collection, those are already processes within the companies. And this is where I think the new game changes enter. It's not just a matter of graphical user interface, it's a matter about how do you engage with the customer or with the B2B applications. And from our side, it's clear there is only one way, is using the APIs. So this is the model that Telefonica International Wholesale is following. I will try to be very brief, but basically we have the typical wholesale hub where we have the different Telefonica's companies and the different partners that we have, MNOs and aggregators connected, and we will keep playing the game on SMS and on digital. Then we have on the right-hand side the use cases, and I will brief you a little bit if we have time on the travel insurance, for instance, because it's quite tricky. And in the middle, which is the heart of our new business development, is what an orchestrator that basically has two main roles. The first one is to connect the different ways of messaging that the market is providing to the end users, and to connect those in addition to interoperability into the business processes, CRM, SAP, and so on. So just to give you one example with the travel insurance, how do? We have a company, a Telefonica user that is moving abroad. When it lands in a foreign country, because we have the signaling of the roaming, we identify they are abroad, and then we send them an SMS, and with the SMS we bring them into a Capital portal or into an RCS session, and then we can sell them everything from upgrade on the roaming package to travel insurance, which is the case. This is something that we are going to launch in a few weeks, and hopefully it's going to work well despite all the conditions. I think it's a good example of about what creativity can bring to us. No? So if we move forward, I think we are, let's say, on time. Jose, correct me if not. I wanted to pass you 3 or 4 messages. No? The first one is from our point of view, it's very tough to predict how the end users wants to engage with brands. Actually, if you are able to foresee how the end users are going to engage in the next 2 years, my advice is stop telecom and go into the stock market, because you will become rich. It's a lot of changes, a lot of uncertainty. Within this remark, 2 bullets. The first one is A2P SMS is still alive and kicking. I think for the next at least 2 or 3 years, we will still doing business, and probably the business will grow despite all the expectations. This is how do we see it in Telefonica. And then the digital messaging is ready to go. So what we have shown you are real cases. We have others, like all the support that we have done for the COVID to inform population, and is there, is ready to go. And in my opinion, the digital is simply unstoppable. And as players in the market, we should understand that and play the game. I think there are new opportunities. It's true that the current, I would say, the status quo is eventually going to change, but I think that we have a focus on between the MNOs and the subscribers. Anything who has a mobile operation or a virtual operation can do more business with the subscribers using those tools. We have a new opportunity which is quite hot with the B2B. And then we have what we call wholesale, you may see indirect. The third takeaway I like to talk or to bring to you is a reflection about what the digital shift requires. And the digital shift, what I have seen in the last 2 years, where we have worked a lot to bring on the table, what I have just shown you, is first you need CapEx. Because if you move into a, let's say, differentiated solution, you need somehow CapEx. You need time. And more than OpEx, I would say you need the right people. And probably this is the last, I would say, ingredient, is the secret one and is the most powerful. The other ones are needed. In our case in Telefonica, I'm very glad I lead a people of enthusiastic guys that really are pushing this digital revolution day to day, and I'm really enjoying it. And last, really considering that this is somehow a wholesale forum, I would say that I don't know where you are, but probably you are already thinking about next year budgets, about ending this fiscal exercise, and you will need to take some decisions. And decisions today are not easy. Because, let's say, with the COVID and plus all the changes, we have some challenges, and you will need to balance opportunity and risk. It's difficult to assess the size of the opportunity. We think it's quite significant, but the truth is that there are risks. And why I say it's risk is because any change is a risk if you don't understand it, or if you, let's say, in your market, things are not running as expected. And in addition, let's say, to the disruption on the value proposition, we have a change that for people who are in the telecom market is relevant, which is we are not talking about routers, we are not talking about data center collocations, we are talking about APIs. And this is a different business. It's not, let's say, the traditional telecom business. This is why some small companies, others not so small, like aggregators, are managing well. It's different, and you need to be, let's say, agile, and you need to have the right people. Just to close, we have put in place what I have shown you, and in Tews, 50% of the revenues that we do is relying on partners. We are doing close to 700 million per year, euros, and half of it is through partners, and it's of course not the right moment, but offline or whenever you think, we will be delighted to discuss partnering with you both on the SMS traditional one or on the new digital opportunities. And Jose, this is all from my side.
Thank you, Ignacio. Very nice presentation. I have to say, Ignacio, I'm very pleased by hearing that A2P SMS is alive and kicking, as you presented it in one very bold statement. This raises hope. I'm also happy to see that you have found a wholesale function, let's say, in the RCS ecosystem, which is always of doubt for many players. So great presentation. Now, we have some questions actually that were put into the chat. And the questions, Ignacio, might surprise you or not, are coming from one of your main competitors, from Orange. So colleagues of Miguel today, we have Christelle from Paris asking if you are not using the Google solution. So I guess she's referring to the RCS Google Hub. If there's an agreement between you and Google One is another question. So probably we leave it there.
Perfect. Very good questions. And the truth is that with Orange, we have what we call competition. So indeed, Miguel and Christelle are our competitors, but as well are our partners. This is the way we live. And we are very pleased, and we have a lot of business with Orange, and hopefully we will keep developing it. Yes, it's not, if you see basically the different Telefonica companies have done different approaches. For instance, Spain, Germany, UK have moved into a Maverick Cloud, Brazil moved into Jive. What I'm saying is public, it's not private, I would say it's public information. Everything has its pros and its cons, and we are connected into both worlds. I don't know if I answered the question. So I'm not, I would say, depending on the use case, there are good things for one solution, another one. Our role is really to navigate into the waters, no? So we are happy if it's Google or if it's not Google, but we need to understand what Google is proposing, and then we propose a solution. With Orange, for sure, we are going to be connected. I'm certain about that.
All right. Another question, again from Orange, and this is a gentleman you might know, Frédéric Santuc from Madrid.
I would say bonjour, Frédéric, but his Spanish is better than mine.
So he's asking, what about Mobile Connect for authentication?
This is, Frédéric, I think you took the pitch in the wrong place. This is a big challenge. It's a big challenge. Mobile Connect is, I wish it's part of the digital messaging, which certainly provides insight. The difficulty is to cope with the different agents without the group. And yes, we have in the radar, Freddy. Don't worry about that. I still have no good news for you, but it's in the radar.
Okay, excellent. Hopefully Frederic is satisfied so far. So Christelle responding that you have a common hub or common approach already, Telefonica and Orange, so a positive statement from her side. I think that's it in terms of chat questions. Any questions from the panelists at this point of time? Otherwise, we just move on. And now it's the time, not only for Ignacio, also for other 5 very relevant players in the messaging industry that will be participating here in that panel. So one question that I have for you, and it's a topic obviously that only we are covering here in this panel, no other players or webinar organizers. We would like to speak about the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. To what extent have you seen a change in the business to consumer communication and the business to consumer communication needs, and what opportunities do you take out of that change? Ellen, we start with you, so probably you can introduce yourself, and I think it's the first time for you with us today, and then answer to my question, and then we go through the round.
Certainly. I'm Ellen. I own a company called Telefonica based in Switzerland. We are quite heavily focused on the B2C market and also offering enterprise solutions into operators to allow them. So the topic of this webinar is very actual for the business that we're in at the moment. Well, on the questions that you asked, I think we've all been in lockdown. I don't think there's any country that's got away without it. So the face-to-face contact between businesses and their customers has clearly dropped through the floor. And most of them are looking for new ways to reach out to their customers and to keep them closer than ever. I think what we've noticed on our side is there's perhaps a new wave of customers coming through, customers that haven't thought about messaging previously and are just looking for something new at the moment. So from our side, it's certainly all about educating the customers, telling them how they can benefit, and introducing them to the whole world of messaging and showing them really what they can do. I think the customers that have come on with us during this time have really started just in the last weeks with us, have all started with very small services and then jumped at more and more services very quickly. They're already engaging very quickly also with virtual numbers, certainly. So they're starting with some reminders, then they're moving to some marketing, and then already they're wanting to fully engage with their customers and are already looking for what more we can offer them. So I think there are huge opportunities out there in the A2P messaging, thanks to the coronavirus. Something positive for us to take away.
Excellent. Thank you, Ellen. Who's next? Natalia, ladies first.
Thank you, Jose. For the ones who don't know me, my name is Natalia. I work in Vonage, and I'm running the business, carrier business for Russia and CIS, and at the same time, I'm consolidating the global voice services which we are developing in Vonage in parallel. So basically, Jose, answering your question, we had a very, very interesting situation with the COVID stuff, because as you apparently you know, like 90% of the revenues of our company was coming from the classical A2P messaging. So definitely we are developing voice, we're developing OTT channels, video, but still the core business and the main business was SMS. And what we found is it was interesting to see how the COVID moving from the country to the country, and how the impact on the market was moving from the country to the country. So we saw some changes on the APAC region, gradually moving to Europe and then to US. So just the trend was follow the coronavirus spread 100%. The interesting thing that we saw, that definitely we saw a huge decline on the travel and hospitality segment, mm-hmm. on the finance services, on the retail, but at the same time, it was compensated hugely and very fast with education, with online education, online healthcare, delivery, consumer market, logistics. So basically, we saw the huge decline in one part of the services, and at the same time, in industries, and at the same time, we saw this significant growth in the other ones. And this is something I think which boosted the development of this particular services, especially education and the healthcare, because I think that the markets generally all over the world were looking into that and to the development of these sectors, but the COVID stuff pushed it, you know, like 3 years before the natural growth. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very interesting. So e-learning, e-health services are benefiting from the pandemic crisis. Others obviously are suffering. You named the tourism as one of the most obvious ones. Excellent, Natalia, and congratulations for working for one of the CPaaS leaders in the world, Vonage.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck with the business development in your region. Next one, please. So we're out of ladies, now gentlemen. Any volunteer? Suraj. Suraj, you on mute? All right.
Yep. Thanks, Jose. Good to be here again, and thank you very much to Carrier Community for the opportunity to be on such a distinguished panel. Really nice to be working with you all. So to address the question that we had and the impact of coronavirus, I think there's probably a couple of things I'd like to say. We do a lot of messaging support in the US, where we provide analytics services through partners to many of the US operators, and using our platform called Context. And what we saw through March, April is definitely a rise in the volume of A2P messages for sure. And specifically, we saw a rise in COVID-related traffic. So, things that said COVID-19 or responses to the virus. However, again, probably not unexpected, we probably saw about 2 to 5% of that increase in traffic was fraudulent. And when I say fraudulent, typically fraudsters would look at marketing messages, and marketing messages would get trapped in traditional filters. And what we were seeing is that the kinds of templatized messages which let's say a bank might send to its customers, or a government organization might send to its citizens, those are the kind of things that were being used by fraudsters, changing the templates, adding in some malicious URLs, and that's where we're seeing a real uptick in that kind of activity. And I think what we ended up doing is we used a lot of the machine learning capabilities that we had to address that. We came up with new models and implemented those very quickly to be able to detect the fraud, but also make sure that we weren't catching more what we term false positives. So the messages that have to get through, which is when the governments did start to react to COVID and start creating financial plans and support for citizens. You wanted to make sure that stuff did get through. So we spent a lot of time making sure that we're tuning models to that. An interesting aside, if I might, for a moment, Jose, is we actually saw an increase, and I don't know if you guys noticed this across the board, an increase in fraud related to Bitcoin traffic. And as it turns out, and I didn't realize this, but email and SMS spam, when it gets into your machines, these things can be used for the processing of Bitcoins. One organization I came across, they said that typically a PC can be used to mine Bitcoins, can earn 25 cents a day, 25 cents a day in terms of Bitcoins for a fraudster. So that's why we saw an increase in COVID messaging fraud and obviously email fraud, because these people were using those opportunities to mine Bitcoins and get into people's machines. And then, like I say, we started using the opportunities to start thinking about tools for the senders, tools for the good guys, and coming to the point about APIs, coming up with models and APIs that organizations can now use. We could build propositions where you can test a message before it gets sent, so you can test it to make sure that it's the right tone of voice, and it's not phrased in a way that's likely to be caught up by filters. It might not be, make sure it's not overly aggressive language, those kinds of things. So we're really trying to build services now for enterprise to say we can actually help make sure that messages do get through. So that's an exciting part and an opportunity for us.
Excellent, thank you very much, Suraj. Miguel, you'd like to continue to add something to the comments of your colleagues so far?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jose, and opportunity to be part of the panel. So indeed, we have seen over these last months quite a lot of changes, in the sense, of course, that international use cases have decreased for, let's say, the typical travel-related use cases. On the other side, we saw very, very big acceleration on the B2B side, and also what Ignacio already mentioned, the API-fication of the use cases, but also a very big impact on the fraud by CLI manipulation techniques, which has become very, very aggressive, to the level that regulators are intervening in the national market to regulate the use cases and put very heavy control mechanisms and allow quicker intervention on that side. So that fraud is stopped quicker, more proactively, in order to have use cases which are approved, but also be very strict about blocking unauthorized or malignant fraud cases very quickly with authorization of regulators, so that you don't have to go through a complicated process. So of course, that's something that takes time, but has gone rather quickly in this COVID times.
All right, so many fraudsters trying to take advantage of the situation. This is now reconfirmed by Suraj and also Miguel. Not a big surprise. Miguel also mentioned the APIfication, a very interesting concept and buzzword. We might come later to that. Fabrizio, anything you would like to add to the change of business to consumer communication and the pandemic crisis and the opportunities resulting?
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Fabrizio, the CEO of Horizon. Well, I think more or less everything was said already. It was just interesting to hear about the fraud. That was really interesting to hear. What I could tell you is that that we can see there are markets which the traffic went down, markets which the traffic went up. Overall, is more or less balanced, maybe a little bit an increase. But what is for sure is that this COVID raised the attention of communication, digital communication through messaging. And I think this is the good part of this, crisis what we had. And I think for our industry, I think it will open a lot of new doors, because people which had, where we were below the radar, now we are on the screen, and I hope we can monetize those opportunities in the next few months.
Excellent, Fabrizio. Thank you very much. Ignacio, anything to add? I know you had already your round, but it was more focused on your presentation.
Very interesting about the remarks on fraud, and we subscribe them. And we see a previous demand and increasing demand of solutions to fight against fraud. And just to bring you a different point of view, what we have seen as well is a big challenge for our sales guys to approach new customers. Mm-hmm. So in this, I would say, digital for one side, increasing of demand. So everybody wants to become digital overnight. And on the other side, how can you generate trust in people with whom you don't have a human touch? Mm-hmm. And I think this is a good challenge. It's a good challenge. Let's leave it like that. It's something that we, all of us, need to overcome. No?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I think it's also a great opportunity for your salespeople, because people are not traveling, are not busy in the probably stupid meetings. So it's a chance for the salespeople to really grab the client, to get them on the phone, and also to just make progress with whatever projects you're working on. So exciting times for fraudsters, exciting times for messaging, for communication in general. We have some areas that have been hit hard. We have some areas that are really benefiting. We have one comment on the chat from Shailesh from Alienix in India. He says that the number of digital transactions have increased multifold and the cash transactions have decreased. So also here a positive remark from the audience. So now putting a bit the pandemic crisis aside, I think we're facing an evolution when it comes to business to consumer communication, or as others like to call it, application to person communication. We see demand from the enterprise segment that is somehow changing. We will now change to a mode where I just put a question on the table and you can just jump in. Yeah. So we see the enterprise segment probably demanding different services. Is there anything you can say to that? Is there really a significant change in the demand of communication services or enterprises, or is it rather a wishful thinking that we have in order to sell our services and just survive economically?
I may, maybe.
So we have now two gentlemen that are raising their hand. Suresh. I think Fabrizio was a millisecond quicker. Yeah. I have to give him preference. Sorry, Suresh. You know, this is his Sicilian touch. You know, he's always one step ahead when it gets important.
Okay, good. Thank you. Well, I think it's both. One is our wish to sell something, and I think we are in our thinking on that level that the whole world needs our stuff, what we are selling. But I think the mindset on the enterprise side is not everywhere there already. They will come, no worry. So we have time. But I think now a lot of things what we are trying to develop, what we are trying to introduce in the market, it has, from my point of view, more a little bit the early adopter stage than a real mature market. Be it because of the amount of headset which are around, let's say, which are RCS enabled, or be it by the mindset of the marketeers, which, I mean, they don't even know what to do with all those channels all of a sudden, you know. Yesterday was just email, a phone, and SMS, and now they have 200 more. So we are a little bit overwhelming then overnight. And I think this is the thing where we should be a little bit patient. The market will reach there, but not overnight. So to your question, it is both from my point of view. Market needs it, but we are maybe a little bit too early for everything.
All right, this other words from someone that is developing messaging solution for enterprises. Very nice. Suraj, your turn.
Thanks, Jose. Interesting perspective. I was going to say that as we think about enterprise, and this is something that came up as we started thinking about our response to COVID, and I was mentioning before this idea of an API or a platform that would enable an enterprise sender to check a message before it was actually sent to make sure it get through. We started thinking about this from the perspective of deliverability first, naturally, because we come from a messaging world. And that was one thing to say, well, will the message actually get through? And will the CLI still be represented? Will the message be changed in any way? But as we started to reach out to organizations who are sending enterprise messaging, the response was slightly different. And as I think about this, it kind of makes sense. So, you know, everyone's got a budget, and they have a budget for all of these different communication channels. And messaging is currently part of that budget. And as with any budget, everyone says, how can I do more with the money that I've got? How can I get more? If I'm going to spend this money on messaging, how can I get more from messaging? And I think this is where we started to think, and probably because we spent so much time looking at natural language processing, we started to think about, well, two things. What type of message is actually being sent here? Is it a notification about a balance change, or is it a notification about some new marketing event that the brand is doing? And then what's the sentiment? Does it come across in a friendly way, in a way that's nurturing, in a way that's educating? You know, what's the sentiment behind that? And the kind of requirements that we've seen is, well, help us make sure that the message gets through. That's fine, that's hygiene. But additionally, how can we make sure that the message that has been sent will have more resonance with the consumer? Because if I have more resonance with the consumer, I'm likely to be able to start to affect loyalty. I might even start to be able to understand if I can turn the consumer into a frame of mind where they might even be able to, you know, to buy something. So thinking about omnichannel, thinking about where SMS sits as part of that omnichannel, but then thinking about, well, what are we trying to achieve with messaging? How can we make sure that the language that we're using really resonates with what we're trying to achieve, and more importantly, with where the consumer is on their buying journey? So that's where I think, you know, we as an industry can become more creative. And, you know, whilst we are waiting for the market to respond in a big way, and I saw on the chat there that you know, there's lots of research saying messaging is going to rise quite significantly. I think as an industry, if we can try to be more creative and take stuff to the market, I think that's going to do us all a service.
Okay. So in that context, what will be the role of the OTT players in the market, or the services launched by the OTT players in the market?
I think
yeah. Suraj?
Yes, I think there's an opportunity there. You know, when I looked at the, do my research on the APIs, there's something like, Twitter gets 13 billion APIs every month, and Facebook, Google get I don't know, whatever it is, 8 billion a day. So there's a massive use of APIs. I think what I'm starting to see with some of the CPaaS and the OTT community is the availability of more APIs, so people can try to get more insights in real time to then educate the messaging that goes out. And as I saw the growth in APIs, the most popular APIs today are actually in communications. So clearly there's more, there's more people taking an interest. And then the fastest growing is around natural language processing and computer vision and AI. So I'm quite happily, ticking both of those boxes at the moment. So I'm quite excited about the opportunities that, building services that can be API interrogated will bring value to this market.
I think that that's all very valid, but I sometimes feel as a customer quite abused in the sense of the impact of the complementarity of course, the traditional, let's say, SMS channel and the OTT channel. But once you get some subject in this OTT channel, you see that the impact on advertising personalized is, let's say, almost immediate. So you look up whatever holiday, because we haven't planned because of this crisis, you look up for a holiday, within seconds on whatever feed you get bombarded with emails, SMSs, OTT, Facebook, you name it. Of course, it's integrated, it's all part of the old ecosystem, but you sense like you are a little bit completely out of control. And that's something that we as an industry have to be aware of, that we don't scare people away. Of course, it's something you get used to, but still it's something that personally I don't feel comfortable with all the time.
Okay, I have to say, Ignacio, I was pleased, surprised to a certain extent to see in your presentation, and actually I'm referring to the communication orchestration platform, this is how you call it, WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger as channels. I know that traditionally many MNO groups had big problems joining, let's say, the OTT dynamics, but is it probably like a kind of attitude, if you can't beat them, then join them because you don't have any other choice?
Well, it's a good remark. If you cannot beat them, join them. The truth is that what we have seen in our customers is that there is a request for seamless, or to try to provide a similar customer experience regardless of the way, let's say, the end user decides to communicate with the brand. In this regard, our main challenge is to understand, even though the platform is global, is to understand the localities. For instance, the demands in Spain are different to the ones in the UK in terms of channels, of the multi-channel. No? And the truth is that it's an activity that we have launched in the last month. We have been developing and putting in place the first use cases. And to be honest, we don't have the full, I would say, scenario covered today. But what we see is that, I don't want to give names, but the main ones really see that there are a lot of benefits behind them, no? And bit by bit they are opening. Some of them are more reluctant because of their position in the market and history and attitudes as well. But at the end of the day, I think that if you take the 3, 4, 5 key ones, bit by bit they will enter. And what we have seen is that in Spain, UK, Brazil, is if you cover it with the 3 or 4, you have probably access to the 70% or 80% of the population, and not you have always the wonderful SMS. So I wouldn't say it's a identified rule, but the truth is that they cannot stay on the corner, no? So bit by bit they will be forced to be open. I don't see them as if you cannot. I think they are different. It's different companies with different approaches, different value chain, different stock value. Is true, but I think bit by bit we are catching our place, and we're in the right direction as operators. the guys that I presented today. No, so I think it's an ecosystem at the end of the day.
Okay. Do you
I think Ignacio,
consider...
I want to remark, sorry. I think it's like the partnership approach. As you said, like 50% of the revenues through partners. This is just another partnership which includes that revenue stream and value chain. So that's, I think, a natural evolution.
Absolutely, Miguel. When we discuss with Orange, in many cases, we have realized that it's a matter not only about saving CapEx and time and OpEx, it's making things easier. If you want to do a onboarding of a brand into a directory for search with RCS, does it make sense that we do 3 times per country? No, it doesn't make any sense. No. So at the end of the day, I think the good reading from my side is that we have different segments in the pyramid. So we have the traditional carriers, the OTTs, and the aggregators, and it's an ecosystem. I like the ecosystem because if you understand, you have the right contacts, and you fulfill your promises, things go right. No, I think it's exciting and it's a good challenge, and it's good for us.
Maybe if I can add here something, I think also that the times really changed. I mean, not long time ago.
I used to have more hair, Fabrizio.
Sorry? You used more hair.
I didn't. I was born like that.
Good.
But Jose, we don't believe that.
Jose, that time when Jose still had hair, you know, during that time, then they dictated more or less what the subscribers can use as a communication channel, you know. So
those times are gone.
Kind of monopolism of communication channels. I think these times are definitely over, because now the subscriber is dictating where they want to be, over which channel they want to communicate. So at the end, it's not a question if you like it or not. It's just you have to be there where your target audience is. And I think we should enjoy the time, because as little amount of different communication channels like now, we will never have again. I think they will just mushrooming like one after the other. And we should just be aware that this will happen in the future. So,
absolutely, Fabrizio, and enjoy the journey, no?
Yeah. But I also think, I mean, I certainly agree with Fabrizio that the customers know which channels that they want to be contacted over. The problem is that the enterprises, from my experience, generally don't know which channels they should be communicating to their customers over. I think a very small percentage of the enterprises that we talk to actually know what they want. The rest is all down to the sales channel that we're buying it from. And I was really pleased in your presentation, Ignacio, that you mentioned the right people. I think that if the operators want to get involved here, and we're seeing more and more operators wanting to get involved, they need the right people on board. It's not just about having the right products. They need the messaging knowledge. They need to teach, they need to understand the customer requirements, and then guide the enterprises through which channels they should be using best.
You're absolutely right, Elena. Actually, a few weeks ago, we were approaching an insurance company, and the kind of meetings that we are handling now are different ones. In the previous, I would say, all good times, we were approaching just the telecom guys. But we decided to approach this customer was to bring one guy from Telefonica Insurance, because they speak the same language. So if you go to see a guy from advertising, you need to talk his language. The telecom is the foundation, and the technology is the foundation, but definitely the differentiator is the people. I agree with you absolutely.
Absolutely. And I think the operators are in the prime position to do this because they have the relationships with the enterprises already. They just need to build in the real messaging experience, and then they've almost got the perfect combination.
And partnership.
But here comes again the question, is the enterprise customer ready for it? You know, does he understand?
He certainly doesn't understand yet. He's just confused. He definitely needs the sales channel to teach him.
Yeah, exactly. We are on a mission, you know, so we're really on a mission to explain, to tell, hey, look, this is what you can do, and then let's see, you know, so.
Yeah, we're in a mission, and you look like a missionary, Fabrizio. And while we're waiting for the enterprises to adapt to the new reality and hopefully to use fancy enterprise solutions, we still depend very much on the revenues related to SMS and to voice. Especially if we speak about revenues, we refer big time to voice. If we speak about margins, obviously messaging have found their space. Now, Natalia, explain us, in this fancy, exciting, multi-channel, omni-channel environment where everybody gets lost in terms of channels and CPaaS and APIs. What is the role of voice, for example, for a super sophisticated company like Vonage these days?
No, this is an interesting question because, everywhere in the classical telcos, everyone is speaking that classical voice is dying and disappearing. But at the same time, in Vonage, we see the growth of the consumption for voice, and we see the growing interest for the voice solutions we're offering. So first of all, voice is highly used on the verify market, meaning that it replaces the authentication SMSs in a certain way. And we are in some of the products of CPaaS, we are combining both voice and SMS for our customers. Then we see the huge growth in the demand of the conferencing solutions like Zoom, for instance, or the others. They use local numbers a lot to perform the calls. So while the conferencing services are being developed, it means it's another opportunity for the local telcos offering numbering ranges, local numbers in countries to benefit back. And you will be back from voice, and you will be surprised to know that fixed numbers are being now in a high demand. Which, if you come back to our industry like 20 years ago, it was the case. So now it's coming back. So the SIP trunk solutions are also developing quite fast. And I mean, for us and the CPaaS platform, I mean, when we're having a customer approaching us, we're giving them the Lego. You want voice, you want SMS, you want OTT, you want video. Okay, no problem. You can make a Lego. You can make your own castle out of our services. We're like a playground for them. To enable this, to enable any kind of solutions they want. But absolutely agree with the previous conversation that sometimes customers, they don't know what they really want, and we have to educate them on that.
Yeah. So very interesting what you are saying, that there is suddenly a high demand for fixed numbers. Am I correct understanding that we're speaking mainly about the trends of consumer to business communication rather than business to consumer?
I would say that this very trend was brought up with the solutions like Zoom and with the other conference solutions, which are being based on this kind of the classical telco infrastructure by the end, because they are with the SIP trunk level, they are benefiting from a lot of extra features, but still they're using the good old telco infrastructure.
It's wonderful. There's nothing like a number that you can call from anywhere in the world. This is the essence of interoperability, and it's just so easy. So how to get engaged with a company, with a brand, if not calling? Anything else might be a bit more tricky. You might need an app or email, computer. So that's great. And I'm a big fan of integrating numbers into OTT applications. Imagine just for a moment WhatsApp account with a number assigned to it. So my grandmother could call me on WhatsApp. It would be just a perfect integration of both worlds. Yeah, so interesting. So we refer to voice, and I have to make reference again to the presentation of Ignacio, where he said that A2P SMS is still alive and kicking. We have actually a comment on the web chat from Shailesh in India. He's asking if we agree to the Juniper research that is actually stating a significant increase of SMS, a growth of 7%, despite the economic impacts of COVID-19. Any comments to that? I think we covered it to a certain extent initially.
I think in short term we have an increase of traffic because of the COVID. Then the traffics were reduced slightly. But in medium long term, when I say medium long term is 18 to 24 months, yes, we will see still an increase.
Okay.
A slight increase.
Yes.
And what is important as well in the COVID that you referred before is our perception is that we had a lot of pressure. Always we have a pressure on price, but people are really not buying because of price unless you provide them good quality. Because let's say is the engagement that you have with the customer with bad quality, great routes and so on is being affected. No? So the good thing is when you say volumes, what kind of volumes? Because there are different kind of messages. But yes, we are, I don't know if the rest of panelists, but we are somehow modestly, I would say, optimist.
Okay, so excellent. We are optimistic when it comes to traditional services, just as voice, as Natalia stated. The voice obviously related to numbers that still have some traction in the market. We have the A2P SMS that is still enjoying like a steep growth, apparently according to the market research of Juniper, but also according to the statistics of Telefonica. I also have to say that I heard from other operators in other geographies, other statements related to, more stagnation. But I guess it's markets by market and geography by geography that we have to analyze, and probably even operator by operator. So we have another comment, by the way, just stating that as soon as WhatsApp gets into the picture, and this happened in India, for banks, insurances, and travel companies, the MNOs are left out since enterprise and end customer has taken the communication channel end to end. Yeah? So I assume, Ignacio, that this is exactly what you want to avoid, integrating the OTT channels into your communication orchestration platform.
Of course, at the end of the day, the brands what request is a service, and they want to have the best way to communicate with the consumers. Certainly, WhatsApp Business has a solution depending on the market. In Spain, for instance, the presence of WhatsApp is quite relevant. RCS is providing solutions as well. So yes, indeed, you need to handle that. It's how it is, and I don't see that we are out, because at the end the brand requests you for the full pack, for the full solution. But you need to understand what's going on the market, and as well to understand the trends. Let's say if you were saying that I don't know, 2 years ago that Facebook was going to struggle, you would have said never ever. No, it was so strong, but suddenly they move into a big challenge period. I think you need to be ready. You need to understand your customers, as Ellen said. You need to understand very well and to help them in the market. And yes, sometimes you won't be covering the full value chain, but what they want is a solution.
So we don't forget about the last hope that we have as an operator. It was mentioned today already by Telefonica and by Orange. That is RCS. So what I have to mention, and I have to put it on the table here. What about RCS? I mean, we had 2 years ago, 1 year ago, quite a hype. Everything very much pushed by the GSMA, but also by the large operator groups. Yeah, I think we are still facing a complex ecosystem. Correct me if I'm wrong, where all the elements obviously need to join the party. At the same time, it's like the last opportunity and last hope that probably some operators want to stick to due to very obvious reasons. They want to continue being relevant in the A2P value chain. So what's your thought on that topic?
The first thing is, you're absolutely right. Today is still too complex. And actually, when we develop our service and the relationship with our partners, what we keep in our mind is to try to make it simple. So despite all the, I would say, challenges that you need to overcome in terms of integration, seamless, etc., what I think the good thing for the market is that once you have done this job, people don't need to reinvent the wheel. This is why, at the end of the day, I think the aggregators, the OTTs are playing their role, and as carriers, we need to play our role as well, and to facilitate this roadmap. No, when I was showing in the presentation our model, I put it on purpose, and Christelle from Orange requested us, how do you connect to one and to other? This is what we have to do as partners, to connect and to facilitate people to enter into the system. No? If it's complex and if it's difficult to understand, it won't work, despite all the efforts that all the operators are doing. The truth is that there is a good commitment, and the numbers in terms of users is growing, but we need to make it simple. Let's say, actually, internally, all our fight is to make it simple for our partners.
What is the greatest challenges that we face in order to make it happen, RCS?
I think from one side, it's true that I think we lost a bit of time, not to say quite significant time, because we had an opportunity as carriers. But the truth is that as well, the user profile and the features that the RCS is providing today are improving. No? So I would say from one side is things are started to be ready, or are ready. Carriers are playing the role. Sometimes regulation is not fair, in the meaning that, for instance, why do you need to have full low intercept with RCS and not with other OTTs that we have already mentioned? I think is somehow crazy, and I'm not, let's say, a fan of regulation, but we think we need to have a fair play between the different platforms. At the end of the day, I think it's coming. I think it's coming. The numbers are showing that things are coming. So I don't know. We ran a few weeks ago a campaign in one of our countries for several million of users, and at the end, the numbers that is showing is terrible. No, so if you send an SMS or an email, if you get 4 to 15% of people who are reading, is great. We are doubling or multiplying by 3 or 4 times those taking rates, no, with RCS. So it's, at the end, when we prove that to brands, is going to help a lot.
Thank you. I keep fingers crossed for RCS. I'm a big fan. I live in a country where apparently, all 3 operators have launched it. I'm really keen to start using it. Now, we have an interesting question from Anurag Agarwal. Anurag is responsible for messaging at Tata, and he's asking the following. I think it's an interesting question. This is why I want to pick it up right now. Who will be winning the race? I rephrased a bit. Yeah, the aggregators focusing more on operator exclusivity gateways, so they have exclusive access to the operator network, or those focusing more on the omni-channel strategy. So I rephrase, the ones that have a strategy that is more focused on having exclusive access to operators, or the ones that focus on developing fancy enterprise solutions.
This is for me the question, or for everybody?
Is for the whole group. You can pick up whenever you feel like.
I can jump in here.
Yes, Ellen, that's yours.
Certainly. I think that monetization and all the help that these companies provide to networks is extremely valuable. I think it's very clear that the firewalls aren't enough. It needs the people with the know-how to be managing those firewalls. But I also think that those people with the know-how to manage the firewalls and those ones that are actually helping the MNOs with the firewalling and monetization at the moment are also very much up to speed in the whole omni-channel environment. And I think that it's very important to have the multi-channel approach towards the enterprises in country, but I don't think it's really a question of one or the other. I think on the international side, you can still control the firewalls and control the monetization, and yet still run a multi-channel approach towards your enterprises in your national market. So I would say both are going to be winners.
Okay.
I don't know for Fabrizio and Natalia, from my side, my big competitor is the numbers that they have to beat the next year, rather than who's winning another race. No, I have my own challenges.
Yeah. But I have to say, I agree to a certain extent with Anurag. It is kind of a stretch, and it's a stretch that most large aggregators are actually going through. Yeah, they want to have a solution for the enterprises. They want to position themselves on the firewall exclusivity space, and it's surely not easy. You can't do everything right. Yeah, it's about strategy. So I have to ask Laura how we are doing in terms of time. Laura, any answer? It's 16:16 on my side.
So yes, we can slowly start wrapping up the session if you're ready. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. So we started with the consequences of the pandemic. We continued with business to consumer messaging or communication evolution in general. We have spoken about the complexity that is faced on the enterprise side, obviously on the provider side, and also on the strategical side. Now, what about this CPaaS buzzword that somehow is putting together different elements that we have mentioned today? Is everybody going CPaaS, or is just everybody claiming to go CPaaS? Or what the hell is CPaaS? More than just an API platform. Can we shed some light here? Because this is a really buzzword I'm stumbling over and over, no matter on which door I knock these days. Anything you can say to that?
Jose, can I pick it up?
It's for you. It's for
As a representative of the CPaaS world.
I did want to look at you, but it's for you.
Thanks. So actually, the beauty of the CPaaS solution for any kind of enterprise customer is that you approach one company and you have everything. You have all the countries covered. You have all the possible services covered, the telco services. So it's a kind of a telco marketplace of the marketplace of the telco services. And I have checked several analytics about that, and I see the forecast, and the forecast within the next 2 or 3 years, just the growth of the CPaaS market will be doubled or even tripled. So the growth is really fast, and each year they are adjusting the forecast only in the direction of the growth, or the further growth. So it's increasing and increasing. So generally the CPaaS market is very variable, because you can find a lot of niche players who may be offering the same, portfolio of everything. But again, the scalability is different, and the geographies is different. So basically for CPaaS, we are something around 4 and 5 main players in the world. And I would say that the other solutions would look like a little bit more regional focused rather than the global ones.
Did you say 4 to 5 players, Natalia?
Yeah.
Okay, if I Google now, I will find 50 to 100 players.
Absolutely, yes, but I would expect, absolutely. This is something I told you. I mean, the portfolio looks like similar, but the devil is in the details.
Who is not CPaaS? I am CPaaS.
Yeah, it depends on.
That's fine. Okay, so I think we will need to wrap up, as Laura said already 4 minutes ago. Probably you can give a quick outlook. So it's just 5 of us. Suraj had to leave. Probably a little outlook on the probably the main challenges that the traditional telco players will face over the next 3 years. You know, can we somehow bring it to the point? What will be the main challenge for the company you're working, or in general for the traditional telco players? Natalia, you want to start?
Well, for traditional telcos, I think the main challenge will be the flexibility, because and the way they can I think develop is that something which Ignacio also mentioned in his presentation is the partnership models. Because you can be the network owner, you can operate the network, implement the new services, and at the same time be as flexible as possible. So you need to find the solid partners who can help you to monetize your infrastructure. And this is something I think which is would be a good point for the future for the classical telcos.
Excellent. Thank you, Natalia.
Well, if I can comment, thank you, Natalia,
yes,
for your comment. I think regarding the flexibilities, Natalia is absolutely right. And actually, one of the key challenges is how to replicate the use cases. So at the end of the day is to have 3, 4, 5 verticals and to try to understanding this demand from a specific customer to try to replicate the solution in different geographies. You know, for instance, if we talk about travel insurance, it's not just a matter of one geography, it's a matter of several geographies, and not only international, it's as well for domestic services. No? So from one side is this, and on the other one is the appification at the end of the day is a relevant change for us. And it's close to what Natalia was saying, is flexibility, but it's a different, I would say, bench of people that you need to put on board. So it's not only the technical side that needs to set up the configurations, is the sales guys who need to understand the customer, is the processes that you need to put in place. And in this regard, what we are doing is a big effort into moving into agile ways of working. I think I have seen in Telefonica a big change. If I look back 3, 4 years ago, really we have crazy people, not crazy people, a lot of good people, really very concerned about processes. And now really our big, I would say, challenge is to reply to the customer on time. So even if we fulfill the solution, but we are not on the right time, and other people who are more flexible and faster, we won't get the bill, we won't get the deal. So really I don't know if it's challenge, is where we are going to fight, and where we are, let's say, in the middle of the transformation, is to be more agile. We need to be more agile, and this is where we are spending a lot of effort, and people is the key. If you have the right people, it's easy. If you have the wrong people, it's impossible.
Agility and Telefonica. Ignacio, your words are filling us with hope.
Isn't that the truth?
Fabrizio, any comment? Oh, sorry, Ellen, you wanted to go?
I can certainly go. Yes, I mean, I completely agree. Flexibility is the key word, and the people. And of course, flexibility isn't a word that we would traditionally associate with traditional carriers and operators. And I think there is a huge opportunity for them if they can fully embrace the change and fully embrace the fact that they need to start looking at much more complex products and solutions. I think they're perfectly placed. They have the brand name, and like I said earlier, they have the relationships with the enterprise, and they have one other key. Data security is becoming a bigger and bigger theme amongst enterprises, and the more sensitive enterprises are beginning to want to keep the data in country, and preferably even on network, hard patched into the mobile operators. And I think that does give them a really good advantage in the fight that's coming. But it's going to be a challenge. I mean, the aggregators have been doing this
for a lot longer. They have a lot more specialists. They're much more used to dealing with these complex requirements and finding simple solutions. So that'll be an interesting fight.
I subscribe what you are saying, but really we don't see aggregators as competitors. It's true that in certain accounts we have, I would say, people going together or fighting for the accounts. Mm-hmm. But the truth is that there are a series of accounts where we feel comfortable and other accounts where we don't feel comfortable. And of course, this is going to be an area of friction. Mm-hmm. But in general, I think that we can reach many customers that, I don't know, if we talk about Asia, Telefonica, I don't think a sales guy of Telefonica is going to do business in Asia. I love to partner with Asian aggregators. I will be very pleased, and then to take profit of all the investment and developments that we have done. So it's true what you are saying, but I think we need to understand when we talk about omnichannel, it's not only about SMS, A2P, RCS, it's not only about communication, it's as well about sales management.
Mm-hmm. It's all about.
We have to shorten the discussion because we have to get to an end. Fabrizio, please, your turn.
I will make this very short. Your question back to that was the future of our market, what will come. And we are today in the year 2020. And the decade of conversation started. So I think the next 10 years will be focused on conversational communication. This means mobile phone will be in the center even more and more. Omni-channel will be present. A lot of channels will be there more than today. We just have to accept that. And to make the strategy, everyone has to do by himself, at the end. Not all the channels come at once. So I think we have really time. So if I can give that to the audience today, don't panic, not because all the buzzwords are flying all around. Take your time, develop it nicely, develop the market, but don't think you lost already everything, because I think we are just in the beginning of something really, really, really big.
Thank you, Fabrizio. Nice and hopefully soon famous last words. Thank you very much to all of you, wonderful panelists, wonderful audience. Thank you for your active participation. Also to the audience, for your questions. We did not manage to answer every single question, but most of them, I have to say. And I hope you had a pleasant afternoon together with us, and hope to see you soon around, and hopefully face to face, physically, very soon. I'm praying, I'm hoping for that. All right. So I hand over to Laura.
Thank you, Jose. Dear all, we are at the end of this webinar session, and I would like to thank Ignacio for an interesting presentation, Jose for moderating, and the panelists for joining and sharing the knowledge. Also, thank you for the audience for participating and listening. We are looking forward to welcome you at our next webinar session planned for the 2nd of July and all other future webinars. Please visit our event portal for more information on that. This panel will be soon available in recording format in our CC Media portal and Webinar.live page. So thank you again, and I wish you to stay healthy and safe. If you're interested to support and sponsor one of our future branded webinars, please contact CC team directly. And that's it. Thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.